I don't think you're actually after success. I think you just want to feel something again, like you're actually good enough for once. That feeling, that anxiety of feeling behind, I think that's just confusion based on looking too far ahead into the future rather than focusing on what's going on right now. Let's talk about how the Stoics got over that feeling and exactly how it can help you to stop feeling like you're never good enough. I think for the most part, people never feel like they're good enough because they're too focused on the transformation rather than the process itself. You watch the videos, you read the quotes, you get stuck into the books, you buy a course, you feel inspired, and then nothing changes. That hit of inspiration you initially get, that's your brain thinking that you've done something. It's kind of like an subconscious thing that's telling you, yeah, I've accomplished something right now. That's why you can't push past that next step. So I think currently as it stands, you've just been mistaking that feeling for actual progress. The Stoics understood and taught that improvement isn't a feeling. It is what you do. It is what you embody. It is what you practice every single day. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for the public to see. It's a very fucking good book, by the way. You should 100% check it out. They were his private notes. He didn't want them to be published. They were just for him to remind himself, to tell himself, pulling himself back on track every day. At the time, he was one of the most powerful people on earth. And he still told himself things like, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He didn't write things like that because he thought he mastered life. It's because he didn't. And that's one of the reframes, is to stop comparing yourself to that version of what's meant to be and compare yourself to the version that was. Did you do the things you said you were going to yesterday? Did you complete your weekly to-do list? Did you go to the gym 3 times a week this week like you said you was going to? That is what you should measure against. Not 5 or 10 years down the line. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. What are you doing in this moment to become that person in the far future? In the second thing, I think Epictetus is actually the perfect example for this. And it's to understand the differences in outputs and inputs. Epictetus was born a slave. So as you can imagine, especially in those times, you don't really have much control over your life. What it is that you do, where it is that you go, what do you wear, what do you eat. So the most basic human principles, human rights and needs in this day and age, you don't have control over that. But what you do have control over is this. No matter how bad the situation may be, how you think, how you behave, and how you respond is always in your control. That's always your own, no matter what. Because whether you want to accept this or not, there are going to be things you cannot control. Other people, the weather, whether someone decides to cut you off in traffic, you can't control those things. No matter how hard you try, you have no real control over the results. You control the effort, you control the standard, you control the attention. Everything that you put in, you control. And you could be incredible at what it is that you do, but you may still come second. Maybe it was just circumstance, maybe it was just luck, maybe it was just not meant to be. Whatever that is, you cannot control the outcome. You can only control what you put in. So stop measuring yourself about what's happened and start measuring yourself about what you've actually done. Because I know if I trained really hard, week in, week out, for months to run a marathon, but on the day of the marathon itself, I didn't actually make the full distance. Although, would I be upset and angry with myself? Yes. I'm not gonna say that I wouldn't, because I know I would. However, I know in my heart that I tried my fucking best. And at the end of the day, in the moment, I would be measuring myself by the result. I know that. But eventually I would measure myself by the input of my consistent training and my efforts that I've put in. So start looking inwards. You can control this. You cannot control everything else. The next and final thing is to simply make the bar embarrassingly low. This isn't to belittle yourself, But I do believe that the gap of you right now and where you're supposed to be is the distance between what you said you was going to do and what you actually did. So the lower and smaller you make that, the easier you'll actually have of time to get over it. Because once you get over one obstacle, there's nothing stopping you from going over the next, and then the next, and then the next. And you can rise the bar and the challenge as high as you want. That is then entirely up to you. Seneca wrote this quote, and I think it's really worth sitting with for a moment. It is not that I am brave, it is that I know what to fear. In my experience, people tend to fear, I think that on a subconscious level, is starting small, because they think it's insignificant. They feel like they'll get laughed at, or they'll just get said, well, what's the fucking point? Because it always has to be, I need to bench 100 kg, I need to deadlift 200 kg, I need to walk 10,000 steps a day, I need to run a half marathon. Well, what about all the hundreds of steps before that? You don't just walk into the gym, go on the bench and chuck on 2 plates either side and just get to it. You may start with just the bar, maybe some 210 plates. You have to work up to that goal. People say they're going to walk 10,000 steps a day every day, when in reality they average between 1,000 to 3,000. Do you really believe that going from here all the way to here is a healthy response, is the right thing that you're actually going to stick with? Personally, I don't think that it is. If you said I'm going to walk 4,000 or 5,000 steps a day, I think that's a brilliant idea, because it's a genuine, real and sustainable jump from one place to the next. You don't just become something by doing it once. You have to embody it day in, day out. Just like I've always wanted to be a reader, but I always struggled to read. So I set myself a small and sustainable challenge of reading 10 pages of a book every single night. That may not seem like a lot, considering how large books actually are. But when you add it all together, you can probably get through 8 to 12 books a year, which is a lot more than the 0 that I normally averaged for the past 28 years of my life. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men of his time, wrote the same things to himself over and over again, every single day, because he needed it. That's what self-improvement actually looks like. It doesn't matter where you are, or who you are, how much power you have. There's never this single moment where something clicks and all of a sudden you're fixed. It's about being a man who returns to do the work over and over again to be slightly less wrong than before. And that's going to be enough. If you would like a full 90-day blueprint you can actually follow, I made a video about that last week. You can check out right over here. I think this is probably one of the best next steps you can take right now. After hearing this, I've got some free resources in there as well that you can check out, as well as in the link in the description. I wish you the best on your Stoic journey, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.